Card King, here I come. Hello, music fans, music collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome to the program a longtime legendary performer. He's a singer, songwriter, keyboard player. His new album is titled The Way of the World, which is out now. I welcome to the program Richard TBear. Richard, great to have you. Thanks for being on.
It's great to be here. Hey, cats and kittens. I love it that everyone is tuning in to this great show by Brian, and it's good to be here, man.
Thank you so much. Honor. TBear, I wanted to ask you, The Way of the World, your newest release. Give us a little intro of this new album. How was it born into existence? And just give us a little insight.
Okay, so it's the tail end of COVID and the pandemic, and we're all locked down. So I was writing a record, the next record to follow up from Fresh Bear Tracks, which was the precursor to The Way of the World. And I thought to myself, I was listening to a lot of Bob Dylan that week, and I thought to myself, what would Bob say with the status of the world? And so I started with The Way of the World, and, one thing led to another, and I would go over to Lawrence Juber's house. Lawrence Juber is the guitar player that was from Wings, and he's the co-producer of this record. I'd go over to his house, sit down at a keyboard, sing the song, put a click track on it, and send it over to the drummer, Tony Bronicle, the other co-producer of the record. And he had his drums set up in his living room at his house. He'd put the drums on, send it back to Lawrence. Lawrence put the guitars on it, send it over to the bass player's house. And that's the way we made this record in everyone's home. And then when it came time to sing it, I said, who's got the best microphone around? And it was J.J. Blair, so I went to his house and sang the record. So that's how it happened, and that's how it's put together, one track at a time.
Amazing. And The Way of the World, it boasts a stunning set of 12 original songs written and co-written by yours truly with us, TBear. And word is out, TBear, that you've always excelled at songwriting. Would you agree? That now, how is the process of songwriting, getting everything all together on this Way of the World release?
Well, the way I approach songwriting, for me, at this stage in my career, in my life, is I start with the lyrics. And I also will write a short story about the topic. And then I will pull out pieces from that short story and start to write the lyrics and then put the music to it. Because a long time ago, when I started out, I remember, a publisher who I was trying to get a deal with. I would send him my songs, and he would call me up and say, they're good songs, but don't bore us, get to the chorus. And also, tell the story in 3 minutes or 4 minutes, because it'll never get on the radio unless you do. So that's kind of the secret sauce to the way I write.
Yeah, and listening to this new album, there's an infectious mix of blues, rock and roll, Americana. I would assume, I would guess, this is your roots in music.
It is my roots in music. I was a studio session player for a long time. I had played with a lot of different bands and a lot of different people. And, it started off as a kid playing on Richie Havens records, and then it joined his band for a little time. And then, being tapped on my shoulder by the Kiss people, playing with Kiss and doing their solo albums, and then Cher's albums, and then going to playing Stephen Stills' band and joining Crosby, Stills and Nash for their Southern Cross hit, playing on that and working on that. So one thing leads to another. One, door closes, another one opens. So, that's really, I was always tapped to play different ways, and I was lucky because I was born in New York City and raised in the Caribbean, so I had a lot of Latin influence in Puerto Rico, and then in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, a lot of Creole influence. So, that's what I learned to play, calypso, Latin, mento, And, when I got back to New York and I was, coming up through the ranks, people went, wow, that's kind of different. You put all that into rock and roll. And that's what Stephen Stills liked, because he had just finished with Manassas, a band of his, and he had a, traveling road band. And it was, Joe Lala, the great percussionist, and a lot of those cats. And I played in kind of a different way. My heroes were Leon Russell, Dr. John, and Nicky Hopkins. So that's that's for the keyboard players out there. They know them. Those were my influences.
And now, before, I want to delve into your history a little bit, but what I want to do is we have a little sample of the title track, "The Way of the World," that I want to air now. Let's hear a little sample of "The Way of the World."
Great.
Never stop swimming. Riders need a beginning. Cheaters never stop winning. That's the way of the world. Losers need a do-over when they're living in clover. They want it over and over. That's the way of the world. I fold up my past, put it away in the drawer. Got my back up against the wall once more. Evangelists never stop sinning, and politicians never stop grinning. Bill collectors, they never stop sending, and that's the way for the world. Ex-wives never stop spending, hipsters never stop trending, bankers never stop lending. That's the way of the world. Fold up my past, put it away in the drawer. Got my back up against the wall once more.
And we just heard "The Way of the World" by Richard TBear. With us is Richard TBear. I mean, this is great stuff, Richard. A smooth rhythm, for our listening pleasure. Nothing overwhelming. You can relax to it, and and have a drink to it. It's really good stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely rock Americana. Like I said, the homage to Bob Dylan and Robbie Robertson of the band. That's the way of the world. Really, sonically, it's real retro. The sound and the instruments on it, and sonically, it's a really good, easy track or easy album to listen to. You really, it's kind of a oasis for the ears. It's really nice. It's well put together, and I salute J.J. Blair's mixing and Tony Bronicle and Lawrence Tuber for the production.
Absolutely, and this is released by Quarto Valley Records. For the listening audience, Richard, where can they purchase this new album?
Well, it's on all the streaming platforms for you to download, and you can also contact QuartoValleyRecords.com, and get yourself your CD or whatever you want over there. That's where you can get it, and it's selling like hotcakes.
Yeah, no, this is great stuff. And just to mention your website, tbear.rocks, right? .com?
Yeah, tbear.rocks.com. That's it. That's my site.
Great stuff. Now, just going over your history, hard to fit your 60-year plus history in 27 minutes here. But, it's amazing. 1978, you got a signed deal with RCA Records, which was huge at the time. I mean, they had artists like Elvis Presley and so many others. That must have been an exciting time in your career, huh?
It was very, very exciting. I went into the signing, and Chet Atkins and was holding court, having a martini, offered me a martini. It was exciting. It was a kind of Heinz 57 varieties of artists on the label at the time. There were disco, there was Elvis, there was all kinds of. Even Bowie, different artists. And they took one of my songs and went into the studio and made a maxi single, disco single out of it. It turned out to go to number 4 in the world charts. And I was off and running from that moment on. It was great. I became really, really a big artist in Europe. In the United States, I was an opening act for everybody, and playing all these stadiums and coliseums with big headliners being the opening act. And then when I got to Europe, I was the headliner, not playing stadiums, but playing some pretty big halls.
And, I mean, you have appeared on numerous recordings, including Crosby, Stills and Nash's Southern Cross. How was it working with Crosby, Stills and Nash?
That was great. Graham is such a gentleman. Crosby was a handful. May he rest in peace. Stephen Stills was one of my favorite people. I still have dinner with him on Monday nights here in L.A. And it was great because I got to see that song, Southern Cross, from its inception. It was originally called 7 League Boots. And then Stephen got a hold of it and started putting his special sauce on it. And I worked with him on that, and then got in the studio and started putting keyboard parts together on that, and it just sounds great, and it went right to the top of the charts, and it's still being played like every day. Somebody plays Southern Cross. You could be walking down the street and hear it on someone's radio, or no matter where you go, someone's playing Southern Cross.
Man, and now how did you get? Now, what about Carly Simon? I know you worked with Carly Simon as well.
Yeah, I worked with her not as a musician, but as her road manager.
How did you get that deal?
Well, it was at the time in my career when I was doing anything I could do, anything, to be involved in some sort of way in the music business. I would go to all these open mic nights at all these places in New York City, and I met a bunch of musicians, and a bunch of them played with Carly Simon. Carly Simon was starting out. She just had her album Anticipation was a hit, and she was just finishing No Secrets, and then she had a little tour, and the guys said to me, they were all friends of mine, the guys said to me, "Hey, man, we need a road manager. You want to go out with us?" And I said, "Sure. Absolutely. I'll do anything to be out there," thinking I could play keyboards better than the guy that she had hired. In my mind, I was 19 or 20 at the time. And I went out as the road manager, learned all about how you perform and what's required by a band. And I didn't stay as a road manager very long, just that little tour. And then I started going to the open mic nights myself and writing songs. And all of a sudden, I had put a band together and getting some interest. And then RCA tapped me on the shoulder and said, "We want to sign you. We like your songs."
Yeah, and I don't think many people know. I mean, at age 13, you were writing your own songs. How does a 13-year-old get the ability, or I guess there's a lot of imagination, to write his own songs at that age?
Well, I had my first band at 12, and at 13, wow. I said, "Well, I've got, we're covering everybody's songs." I'm 13 years old. We're covering everybody's songs. We better write one for ourselves. So I kind of looked at the way the records I was buying and the songs and how they sounded, And I started writing these really basic 3-chord songs, and it really struck a nerve in me, a chord in me. Pardon the pun, but that launched me. I said, "This is what I really want to do." And later on, in my teenage years, when I was 18, 19 years old, I got a job in a music store in New York City called Manny's Music. And I'd go down there and I worked there, and I met all the bands that came through town, and I got passes to the Fillmore East, and I went down there, got a backstage pass one day, and they were having a big jam that night, and I was standing on the side of the stage, and the roadies for this band knew that I was a keyboard player, and they invited me on stage, and it ended up Jerry Garcia was the guitar player jamming at that moment with the Grateful Dead, and I'm playing on stage with the Grateful Dead. Traffic, Hot Tuna. It was a big night. I got to play on stage at the Fillmore East. I looked around. I was terrified, and I said, "This is what I want to do for the rest of my life."
I mean, that is unbelievable. Now, 1983, now you took a hiatus, right, from making music during
Yes,
the early 80s?
Yeah, what I did was I took a hiatus. I had met a woman in L.A. We fell in love, got married, and had children. And with her first pregnancy, she said to me, "Look, you can't go out on tour. You can't go out and do all this stuff. You got to get a day job." So I took a hiatus from music for 20-something years.
Wow.
And almost 25 years, and just raised a family. We ended up getting divorced after 20-something years, and later that year, I moved in with a woman that I fell for, who loved music, and we got married. And long story short is she nagged me till I could put a band together. She said, "Look, I know who you are. My ex was a guitar player in your band 20 years ago, and I think
Really?
it's time for you." Yeah, right. And I think it's time, 6 degrees of separation. I think it's time for you to put a band together. So I went to a bunch of friends, Denny Sywell, from the founding member of Wings, and Lawrence Juber from Wings, and the E Street Horns, the guys that were playing with Springsteen, and a bunch of other guys, and we put this amazing band together called TBear and Route 66. And we'd play a residency in the Valley, San Fernando Valley, at a club called the Write-Off Room every Tuesday night. And, word got out, and all of a sudden, there was label interest again. So the long story short of the album Fresh Bear Tracks, because I hadn't put anything out in years, is that Robbie Krieger gave me his studio to use to record an album. He said, "Look, just pay the engineer. You can have the studio. I want you to make records again." And I said, "Thanks, Robbie." He was a really generous guy. And we went in there for the next 18 months and recorded 23 tracks when the studio wasn't in use, 21 originals, 2 covers. And Robbie played on it, Stephen Stills, Edgar Winter, some of the guys from the Heartbreakers, some of the guys that played with Steely Dan, the E Street Horns. Everybody came, and everybody showed up, and everybody played on that record. And it was almost when the record was finished, about 85, 90% finished, that my wife was diagnosed stage 4 cancer, and 4 months later passed away.
Oh, wow.
And
sorry to
so
hear that.
the album, yeah, thank you so much. So the album is dedicated to Nina, and I wouldn't have done it if she hadn't nagged me and said, "You must, start writing and recording again." So the last song on Fresh Bear Tracks is Nina's song. It's a lovely song dedicated to her, and she wrote me a note towards the end of her life, and it said, "Finish the album, go back on tour, never cancel another gig, live your best life, fall in love again." So that's the note that I honor, and I live by those words every day. And so I got to tell you, The Way of the World is, the sequel to Fresh Bear Tracks, and they're both secret sauce on both of them is Nina. So I'm very grateful for her inspiration.
Yeah, very inspiring. So we fast forward to now, the present, and I read a quote that you said. It was making the way of the world was like getting a new pair of glasses. I see everything more clearly now. Something to that effect. When you said that quote, so you see things more clearly, what did you mean by that?
What I mean by that is maybe it's age, maybe it's like being able to pick apart what you really want to have in your life and what you don't want to have in your life, and and also giving back. I'm very much into giving back. I became involved with a thing called MAP, the Musicians Assistance Program, a long time ago, and it's became Music Cares, an arm of the Grammys for charity. And so what I try to do is help musicians that don't have any third-party insurance, get them into detox or rehab or, halfway houses and things like that, and give back to my musical community. That's really important to me. We have a musicians picnic every summer that raises money to get these things done. And so in having a new pair of glasses is just being able to focus clearly on the arc of your life and what you have in front of you, to live in the now as opposed to, the past or maybe thinking about, the future, living in the now.
Very nice. Now, most recently, you've been touring with the, blues guitarist, acclaimed blues guitarist Walter Trout. How did you get involved with Walter Trout?
I'm okay. Here's 6 degrees of separation. 30 years ago, at the musicians' picnic that I just explained, he came in playing with Canned Heat. I was there playing in the super band, the superset band, and he and I really liked each other. We exchanged numbers, and so for the last 30 years, we've been buddies. And he would say to me, "Hey, I'm doing an album right now. I need a song," and I would write him a song, and it would go on his album. And I put a few songs on his album. He and I really liked each other, and we were really good friends. And he called me up and said, "Hey, I need a keyboard player, because my keyboard player got ill and can't go on the tour. Would you come out with me?" And I said, "Sure." So I went and did Europe with him, and we had such a good time, and it was such a great fit that he said, "Would you do U.S. with me? Would you do Australia with me? Would you come back and play more with me?" And I said, "Sure." So I was just putting out The Way of the World. He was putting out his album Broken, and he took one of the songs off The Way of the World called Breathe, and he recorded it and put it on his album. So we have that kind of relationship. He's a phenomenal guitar player. He's had 31 albums. All his albums go to #1 in the blues charts. And I love playing with the guy. He's a great singer, great guitar player, and really, really authentic, genuine, and beautiful soul.
He's definitely one of the best. Now, when I look at your website, TBear, you have any tours coming up?
I'm going back on tour. I'm going back on tour with Walter in July, and he features me, and the band leaves the stage, and I do a song myself. And then he comes out and plays along with whatever I'm doing. So I'm going to be out on the road with him, and also do a lot of opening acts and things of that nature. I just played with Mike Zito, the other blues guitar player, opened for him in Bakersfield. I've got one coming up in L.A. for the L.A. people. It's going to be at the club called The Mint, which is a great blues and live venue in L.A., and I'm going to be there on the 22nd of June, which is a Saturday night, at about 8 o'clock in the evening. So I'm going to be playing that. And then on the East Coast, I've got some dates coming up, and I'll be playing over there. I just finished playing did a TBear show in Wellington, New Zealand. So, I'm reaching out.
Man, Yeah, I mean, you seem like you've been busy, and I have like 2 minutes left. So, being in the music business for as long as you've been, you must have seen a lot of changes. Besides technology, any other big changes that you've seen throughout the years? The competition is still rough out there for musicians?
Brian, I'll tell you, it's so rough that that it's not for the faint of heart. And all these, young kids come up and they want to know, well, what should I do? How do I make a living at this? And I say, well, if you're in New York City, get a job in the Broadway band, in a show at Broadway. Then you're going to be playing 7 nights a week. It's hard out there. It's really hard. It's not for the faint of heart. You gotta try to get your stuff into movies, get your stuff on television, get your songs placed in those kind of ways. That's where the money is today. And other than that, go out on tour and sell merchandise. I mean, it's songwriters are making a fraction of what they used to get.
And it's all about marketing yourself, right? You got to market yourself. At least you have a name.
Yeah. At least TBear is becoming a name again. Taking that hiatus really put a dent in my career, but it's coming back, and I'm so grateful for people like you that want to know me, and and I've done a whole slew of interviews, and it's all because this record is so well received. It's gotten 5 stars by a lot of people, and so I'm really grateful for that. The song on it, A Change Will Do Me Good, which is a Bo Diddley beat, went to #1 in Europe, and so they still know me over there. It's a #1 record on Easter Sunday. It went to #1. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I still have a career, and I still have people like you, Brian, that are interested enough to work with me and talk with me. And for all your listeners out there, support live music. Go to shows. That's where it's really at. You help your artists, you help your musicians by showing up and being part of their audience, and don't have complacency or ignorancy. It's like, I don't know and I don't care. No, you can't do that. You got to support everybody, and things turn around in the world by support.
And TBear, I was watching YouTube, and I saw a video you did with Dick Clark on American Bandstand, I believe. I think it was 78, 79. I mean, that was unbelievable.
Right.
I mean, with Dick
and
Clark.
The other thing on this album that I forgot to tell you about was the bonus track, Red Harvest. That's sung with Paul Rogers, the singer of Bad Company and Free. He and I do a duet together. So that's the bonus. That's the cherry on top of this Sunday. So, and that's also on YouTube. So check out TBear on YouTube and all the stuff that we put up there. We kind of a homespun thing. And remember, Quarto Valley Records is the place you can get these records.
Thank you so much. Listen, I really appreciate it. An honor, TBear.
It's great being with you. And remember, cats and kittens, if you can't help them, don't hurt them.
Thank you so much. The Way of the World, TBear. It's out now. Until next week, happy collecting to all.